In 1491, inside a convent in Germany, a nun bit her sister. Not out of anger, not out of hunger, not out of madness. She didn't know why she did it. The room went silent, and then, the next day, it happened again. Different nun, same behavior, then a third, then a fourth, then it jumped to a convent in a completely different city, then another. Priests came, physicians came, city officials came, they tried punishment, they tried prayer, they tried exorcism. Nothing worked, and every single person who heard what was happening was at risk of being next. The world they lived in. To understand what happened inside these walls, you first have to understand what these walls were. A 15th century German convent was not a sanctuary, it was a cage with a cross on top. Women woke before dawn every single day, prayed in freezing stone chapels with empty stomachs, ate their meals in complete silence, slept in small, bare cells with nothing on the walls. Every thought was monitored, not by guards, but by God. Or so they were told. Sin was everywhere. In your words, in your hunger, in your dreams. And if you sinned, even in thought, hell was waiting. That was the psychological air these women breathed, every hour, every day, for years. And here is the part history doesn't tell you. Many of these women had not chosen this life. Families sent daughters to convents when they couldn't afford a dowry, when a daughter was considered difficult, when she was simply unwanted. She didn't choose God. God was chosen for her, and once inside, there was no leaving. No voice, no future, no identity outside those walls. The woman you were before you entered ceased to exist. What replaced her was a nun, silent, obedient, afraid. You could spend 40 years inside those walls and die, and the world outside would never know your name. Generation after generation, women who never chose this, never allowed to leave, never allowed to speak. And something about that, eventually, stops being survivable. It begins. It started with one woman. Historical records don't give us her name. What they give us is the behavior. During a regular morning prayer session, she turned to the nun sitting beside her and bit her, not a graze, not an accident, a full, hard, deliberate bite. The chapel went silent. She was removed immediately, taken to the abbess, questioned for hours. She wept, she confessed. She said she had no explanation. She was genuinely horrified by what she had done. She prayed through the night, and the next morning she did it again. The abbess ordered isolation. The woman was locked in her cell, kept completely away from the others. But it was already too late. Within 3 days, a second nun bit someone during evening prayers. Within a week, a third. The behavior was identical each time. Not rage, not violence, something closer to compulsion. Witnesses described the women's faces not as angry, but as confused, distant, as if they were watching themselves from somewhere far away. Like passengers trapped inside their own bodies, watching their hands do things their minds did not authorize. The abbess tried everything she knew: prayer, fasting, isolation, physical punishment. None of it worked, and then the convent walls stopped being enough to contain it. The spread. Word traveled, as it always does in closed, frightened communities. A messenger carried news to a neighboring town that something strange was happening in a convent. And then, in that neighboring town, a nun bit her sister, then another region. The same report, then another. Historians have documented this spread across multiple convents in Germany during this period. Different women, different buildings, different towns, same behavior, same progression, same complete inability to stop. And here is what made investigators fall silent. There was no physical connection between these convents, no shared food, no shared water, no visitor traveling between them carrying infection. The only thing that moved from convent to convent was the story. Just hearing what had happened was enough to trigger it somewhere else. Physicians were summoned. They examined the food supplies, tested the water, searched for poison, for fungus, for any physical explanation. They found nothing. They examined the women themselves, checked for fever, for wounds, for any sign of physical illness. Nothing. But one physician documented something that stopped everyone in the room. A nun had bitten her own arm. And when she looked at the wound, she showed no recognition of having caused it. She stared at it the way you would stare at an injury done to you by someone else. She did not recognize her own action as hers. Her body had acted, and her mind had not been present for it. When the church finally arrived with its full authority to end this, what happened next was something no one had prepared for. Authority breaks down. The church's response was immediate and absolute. Women who bit others were isolated in separate cells. Rations were cut. Some were beaten as direct correction for sin. The logic was simple. This is sin, and sin responds to punishment. It did not respond to punishment. The biting continued. In several documented cases, it accelerated after punishment began. So the church reached for its most powerful weapon, formal exorcism. Senior priests arrived. Full rites were performed over each affected woman. Holy water, hours of sacred scripture read aloud, relics pressed directly against their skin. The women screamed during these sessions, and then, in at least one documented account, a nun bit the priest mid-exorcism. The room went completely silent. Even the priest had no next step. Civil authorities were now involved. This had crossed from religious crisis into a public order emergency. Officials issued formal legal warnings. Any nun who bit another would face criminal consequences. And this is the moment that changes everything about how you understand this event. The women were not resisting. They were not rebelling. They were not performing. They had no motive, no agenda. They begged to be cured. They confessed repeatedly. They prayed with more desperation than they had prayed for anything in their lives, and their own bodies ignored them completely. Every institution built to maintain control, the church, medicine, civil government, stood directly in front of this and had absolutely nothing. So what was actually happening? And why was simply hearing the story enough to spread it? The explanation. Here is what was actually happening inside these women, and I need you to stay with this because it is more disturbing than the biting itself. When human beings are placed under extreme, sustained psychological pressure, chronic fear, total repression, zero control over their own existence, pressure accumulates inside the nervous system. Not metaphorically, physically. The body holds what the mind is not allowed to express. And it holds it, and holds it, and holds it, until one person, somewhere, cracks. And the moment one body finds an exit, the people around it who carry the same unbearable weight begin to follow. Not because they are weak, not because they are suggestible, but because under sufficient compression, the human nervous system loses the boundary between witnessing and experiencing. You watch someone do what your own body has been desperate to do, and the wall between watching and doing collapses. This is what modern historians and psychologists call mass psychogenic illness. But that clinical label hides what is actually happening. What is actually happening is this: a group of people have been compressed past the point of survival, and their bodies are finding the only exit available. The bite was not the madness. The convent was the madness. The bite was just the moment it became impossible to hide. This was not unique. In 1518, just 27 years after the Biting Nuns, hundreds of people in Strasbourg began dancing in the streets and could not stop. They danced for days, for weeks. Some collapsed. Historical records confirm that some danced until they died. Same mechanism, different city, different expression, same unbearable pressure with no exit. Wherever you build walls high enough and seal human beings inside them long enough, the mind will find the crack every single time. The closing. This did not end in the 15th century. In 1962, a girls' school in Tanzania. Uncontrollable laughter spread through hundreds of students, not joy, something they could not stop. The school was forced to shut down for months. In the United States, factory workers collapsing in groups, reporting identical symptoms, no physical cause ever identified. In online communities right now, documented cases of behavioral and physical symptoms spreading through shared networks. No physical contact required. The century changes. The setting changes. The mechanism does not change, because the conditions do not change. Anywhere human beings are denied a voice, denied control, denied an exit from a life they did not choose, the pressure finds somewhere to go. It always has. The nuns of 15th century Germany had no language for what was happening inside them. The priests had no language, the physicians had no language, the officials had no language. We do, and with that language, with 5 centuries of documentation, of research, of understanding, we have built systems that still silence people, still remove their voice, still seal them inside lives they did not choose, and it still breaks them the same way. They called it the devil. We call it psychogenic illness. But the women locked inside those stone corridors, screaming, biting, begging to stop, didn't care what it was called. They just wanted someone to hear them.